Afternoon. Thank you very much for having me here, and thank you for being here despite all the heavy discussions now probably happening. My name is Mathis Nitschke. I'm from Munich, Germany. I'm composing operas and slowly transformed into a creator of music theatrical interactive pieces. First, I would like to give you some kind of perspective where I come from. So this is an opera happening in 2012 at the National Opera in Montpellier. There was another opera. This is a subject on its own, actually. So when I compose an opera, I compose myself as a sound designer to the piece. So in my operas, there's a lot of dedication going on to what is the natural voice and what is the intimacy of the voice you are now hearing actually when you follow me, and how this is, I think, a very interesting subject to explore in an operatic way. So this is my workplace when there is an opera performance, quite messy. And just to give you an idea what kind of setups I like to use. But this is an opera happening in 2014, also in Montpellier, at the smaller house. And just to give you an idea where I come from, this is a good minute of musical material from Happy Happy. Could you dim the lights a bit, please? So the beyond in opera beyond for me is actually opera beyond repertoire. That's my enemy, actually. So in the opera world, 95% of operas played are pieces which were developed a long time ago. I have a background in visual arts as well, and I have a history in more experimental music theater. And I wanted to explore what happens when I take the opera outside the house. So this piece, Viola, is a short opera in public space. I put the audience into a pharmacy, looking outside on the public square through the window, which is framing the public stage, and this is then becoming a stage. And then, who knows who's the singer? So, which is the right button? This is back, I think. So here's the singer. And the appearance of the singer is catalyzing the whole situation even more into a performance where every incidental pass-by becomes a protagonist of this piece. But at the same time, the audience becomes a protagonist as well, because people are looking from outside inside and see the people looking outside, and there's this really interesting social interplay happening. And this is Vergehen, Passing in English, is a piece which is conceived for a certain path at the Munich River Isar as a conversation between you as the stroller and your smartphone. So this is my first attempt to actually use smartphones inside an operatic performance as part of everyday public life. And the thing here is that, I mean, audio walks is not a new idea, but what I wanted to prevent is that the app tells you, okay, go to place A and then go to place B, and then you get some content to play. So, but instead of that, it's one piece of music, and it adapts seamlessly without you noticing it to the pacing you actually take while walking it. So if you and I wanted you to have the feeling to be in control of how the opera develops, and then the piece actually asks, who is in control here? So the technology or you. And then came this house into my life, which is the last industrial ruins of Munich. It's built in the 30s by the Reichsbahn to produce steam for the train cars, to cleaning them. With these 3 ovens, the steam was generated. It's really a ruin. Windows broken, it's wet, everything. And it's huge, like 50 meters times 40 meters. And the ceiling is 27 meters high. It's really, it has a cathedral-like quality. So here you get a perspective of the dimension. It's better because you see the human. So the oven is 7 meters high. And when I was entering the building illegally, like everybody else does, I just felt this urge that I want to extract an opera from this building. So the whole idea is not to put like, I take a Tosca and make it in this industrial realm. No, I wanted to extract a story and the music out of this building in a kind of minimal invasive approach. And I've followed my very first emotion, which I had in there, entering the building in October, where outside the trees were brown and red, and everything smelled like dying, actually. So it should be a piece about dying. There we are at opera again, but also about loneliness. And this quote by William Gibson, who invented the term cyberpunk, was kind of an inspirational thought for a science fiction setting. Combined with pictures floating around on Facebook of the Pope in coronation in 2005, I think, and in 2013. I think there's quite a drastic society change going on in public space. And the idea, it's a very simple theatrical idea for this piece, which kept being the motor for the whole piece. One lonely woman seeking for connection inside a group of people staring at the smartphones. And I show you now the 3-minute trailer of the end result, and then I walk you through some of the elements of the opera. If you could turn the lights down, that would be great.
Niemand, keiner da allein. Ich bin allein.
Ich in
So musically, it's worth noting that this place was used in the early 90s as one of the very first locations for techno raves. So this is one of the birth states for what I still consider the last real revolution in music, techno. And so musically, the whole piece is a reflection on techno, but coming from the perspective of a classical composer. Another observation is, or was, when I brought people to this place, the very first thing what you do is you look around and you just wonder what the hell was happening here in earlier times. What was it used for? What is this machinery? What's the purpose of it? And then you see this additional layer of graffiti, and you also don't understand. You understand that there's a meaning, there's an intention, but you can't read it, or at least I can't read it. I had actually later some graffiti artists in the place, and they could actually read it. It was quite interesting. And then the next thing is that pulling out the smartphone and taking photographs. So, and this urge to explore the space, to go around the space, and this energy, I wanted to keep alive for the whole evening. That was the driving idea for the staging, for the whole piece. And so we created an app for it, the Maya app. The icon is a merger between the classic play button you find in YouTube or a cassette recorder and the laser warning sign. And we used the app in 3 phases, 3 states during the evening. So when people would come to the place, they would actually do that as part of a future civilization in the year 5000. So they would enter the site as a historic site where they could see the remains of a now extinct, now in the year 5000, extinct society which died in the year 2050. So it's a perspective from the far future to the near future. And so I assume that when you today visit the Egyptian pyramids with all these hieroglyphs which you don't understand, that nowadays you have this augmented reality app which you point to the hieroglyph and gets this meaning behind it, and that's the basic idea for the app. So we use the graffiti as signs, as symbols from a former time, and we let the visitor search for graffiti which give them some layer of meaning, to unlock meaning. At the same time, and this can't be overestimated, it was a social thing. So if you have a smartphone and you look for did you find something? Or, no, it doesn't work, maybe it doesn't work as you, and immediately the people get into talking with each other. That was actually on purpose. We used the smartphones by the visitors, no high tech. It ran down to an Samsung S3. We wanted to have it really accessible. And so this is how it would welcome you. Every marker would come with a sound too. So actually when you have these 100 smartphones in the place, there would be the sound collage from all the sounds coming from the smartphone. And here it reads, with the entrance you accept the, how do you say, Nutzungsbedingungen, like the, or whatever. Like when you click, I accept, in the internet. Here it says, wash hands before upload, which gives you already a hint what might have happened. So, this is my favorite one. So, transforming this piece of junk into a remains from a former instrument. And this is a memorial of names, which was actually running up there. If you make it a bit softer, please. It would actually go down. So slowly you would start to understand that there is something it is something about transformation, and this is probably the closest as it could get. And so this is a waiting situation, and we actually so we defined the ovens as transformation stations for transformation from a bodily existence in the body into an immaterial existence in the cyberspace. Classic science fiction topic. And the whole idea for this former society, or the society we actually now turning into, is that you fulfill your task as a human being in a body by maintaining the body of the cyberspace, by maintaining the hardware infrastructure, the networks, producing the energy. And if you fulfilled your duty, you're allowed to upload yourself to cyberspace to live in digital paradise, being able to replicate yourself as ever you want, being creative, philosophical, whatsoever. And you find these motivational signs. So Irene was the first woman which could upload herself to cyberspace. A bit of a geeky stuff like temperature, and like if you're a gamer, you know these kind of measures. But also hinting to the more metaphysical layer which could happen there. So you will be the light. And also stupid sentences like we find in corporations. They turn around nice poetry into stupid slogans. So here in each beginning lies a magic. But we had mostly fun, like finding interesting remains from in the ruin to reinterpret them. So we thought this looks a bit like a mailbox. And then it says, would you like to donate your implants? Send your message to the Center for Hybrid Life Forms. And this tank is the storage for implants and add-ons. So unfortunately, we don't have moving image. This is a screenshot from the app. And the sign is the augmented reality layer and the fog too. And the fog would come down. It looked actually totally realistic. It's very beautiful what you can do. And the app, by the way, was created by Klazien van de Sandholp and Lucina Pinna, two pioneers in augmented reality from the Netherlands. This was our server controlling the flow through the piece. And to tell the audience when they could and should use the app, we projected the app symbol, the app icon, to the wall with a laser. This worked quite well, actually. So, this worked also well because the staging was done in a way that you never would know where Maya, the woman, would appear next. So there was always this kind of surprise, and it's actually a choreographed movement for audience. You saw it in the video that the people are moving from one side to the other. It's actually, for me, that's actually the most important part of it. That it's a choreography for this mass of people, and it was always very interesting how they react and how this group of people reacts when it's completely packed or not that packed. And so this is phase 2, as we called it. The life story we told. So the story we told with the life character Maya was her rebirth. I have to make the content things very short because I'm already see that I'm running out of time. It's basically she's the chosen one to rescue cyberspace, and she is being reborn into a body in these machines, like reprogrammed, and she lives through the whole life cycle inside a body, from birth to childhood, teenage, adulthood, becoming old, and eventually developing a wish to experience real death instead of the virtual death which she experienced before. So this is youth, and this is tripping herself into music, into sound, into light, into pure don't know the English words right now. So techno as a metaphor, or the rave as a metaphor for transforming oneself out of the realistic experience into something more immaterial. And here we used the app to look inside the oven. So in phase 2 we had something on top of the surface, an additional layer on the surface, but now we used it as a magical looking glass to look inside the ovens. And we used aquarelle paintings by Munich artist Judith Eggert. She invents fantastic organs, like body parts which are not real, and they would rain slowly inside the oven, becoming smaller and smaller. Again, for the tech geeks, this is a screenshot, so it would even it would even recognize 2 ovens at the same time, and you can walk around. It's quite a surprise that it worked so well. It would become black and white until these parts become pixels, and these pixels can form shapes. And as soon as those pixels are close to forming a shape, they dissolve again. As a metaphor for this freedom in the digital paradise. And phase 3, I'm really interested in this smartphone as a material object. So in phase 3, we used actually the torches, the light. We switched off all the lights in the house and asked the audience to light Maya. And this turned into these very beautiful Renaissance-like pictures, like this ceremony, this procession through the audience was quite a magical thing, actually. And I go back one, and in the very end, so what you heard in the video, these young voices, not children voices, not adult voices, they are actually voices in between by 17-year-old girls. They sing from outer space. They are actually her fellows in the digital paradise, asking her, so now, how is your task? Are you successful? And she obviously is not, and in the end these voices sneak their way into the smartphones of the audience members, and then you would hear from your smartphone, Maya, 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 until it breaks. This is now this last short video. If you could put the volume up again. So the screen would become white, lighting up the faces of the audience, and this would be spread throughout the room. Like so, all the audience would be like, Maya, Maya. So, in the end, everybody dead. It's opera in the end. Well, light and laser were not only there for lighting musicians and the singer. Light was kind of a protagonist, light as a representation of the immaterial world, like already in the pixels, but also in physical form. And laser was just too obvious to use as a reference to the rave scene, but also to the sharpness of light coming from there where it could be the holy ghosts. And I'm especially proud of the audience I could attract with that. At least half of the audience you could see that they would never go to the theater and the opera, and I confronted them with quite experimental stuff, and they just enjoyed it. And they could stand there with a bottle of beer, and if it was too much for them, they could just go to a different corner and see it from the distance. And they could be playful with what happened there, and they could also talk to each other without disturbing. And even the very sensible moments, the moments where I as a composer really want people to listen, they did listen. It worked, it really worked. It was very high attention, and you could also dance, and you could also play. So it was, this was quite a surprise for me as well. And it was all done in a very small team. So we're talking here about text, music, app, 2 people app, choreography, and light, plus some 5 technicians or so. And we all did it in 7 months. It was crazy. So, my web links, Maya Opera is the direct link to the website if you want to see more. There's also documentation about it. If you're curious what I'm trying to fund currently, it's parsival.ai. And I have, thankfully, some minutes left for questions. Thanks.
Thank you really much for the presentation, Mathis. Is there any questions about Mathis or Maya? Yes, there in the middle, there's one.
Thank you. It was very inspirational. Can I ask, how much did Maya cost?
Surprisingly little. It depends on the context you would want to see it. So it's a completely independent production, completely self-produced. I actually was the producer with money from the independent theater field. And the whole thing cost 150,000 euros, including 20,000 euros, which I needed to make the room somewhat playable with some emergency exits or renting toilets and stuff, getting power to it. So, yeah, I'm not sure I could have repeated with that budget, honestly.
Thank you. It was amazing to see and to hear some of the pieces. So you just mentioned that it would be difficult to repeat this experience. And originally I was wondering that is it a one-time, like planned to be so few days only performance and very specific to the space? Like would you be able to bring it elsewhere, the same concept, and adapt it to a different space or?
I think so too. I mean, for me as a composer, actually, it hardly makes a difference. I mean, the operas you saw in the beginning, the one was performed 2 times, the other one was performed 4 times, and then each a year of work, which is crazy. But I still love it. And this opera was performed 5 times. And yeah, I mean, the quality of working location specific is that you can really create this very special really this very special experience, which is so outside of standard performance places. But after this happened in October 2017, and I'm now at the point where I see it could go also in other places. One would see how I think the basic structure, the basic form is very easily adaptable, and I think. Not as a guest performance, but I think it would be very much adaptable to other locations and see how the basically story world we created there would adapt to the other place. I'm pretty sure that would work.
Thank you very much, Mathis. That was all the time we had for the questions, but you can interact during after the next speech and the announcement of the winner. But thank you very much, Mathis.
Thank you.